Hey class, Doug Brown here. Welcome to week 2. So by now, obviously we have week 1 out of the way. Introductions, our first assignment. You have some idea about how the class is going to go, and hopefully you found some good information in there that will really help you to connect to the content and what we're going to be doing. You know, this really is a good class. And lots of information in the course, sort of busy, I would say. We take a look at week 2, and I'll talk about that in a moment. A lot of information to read, certainly information to grasp as we take a look at hazard mitigation plans, emergency operations plans, and then certainly the comprehensive emergency management plan, all of which are very important for our community, and especially, I would say, more so for us in our role, whether it be in fire, law enforcement, EMS, or non-government organization. All of these are important because we are the one that's going to be taking that plan, whether we know it or not, maybe not even ever seen the plan, but we're the ones that are going to be going out there, sort of when the bell goes off or when we're dispatched, so to speak, and in making that plan work. So we'll identify whether it works well and whether it won't, etc. But first, going back to last week, starting the class, good job with the discussions. As well as the other assignments. You've done a good job. You've posed a lot of questions. I've seen questions in emails. I've seen questions in the Ask the Instructor forum. So a lot of interaction there, and I want you to know that I want you to keep that coming. If you have questions, you get more comfortable with the class, need a little extra information, send that to me. I like to connect with the students and really be involved. So ask those questions. That doesn't matter. Don't feel like you're a pain. You can text me, call me, whatever, and I will try to help you as much as possible. That's my role. There should be some sort of interaction, and I think in an online class, in this asynchronous environment, we don't get to sit in a classroom where you can pose those or come up after class and ask me questions. We sort of have to do it this way, and it's good. I like it. So keep them coming. I try to answer those questions and help you out day and night, weekends, whatever. Sometimes it takes a little while to get back to you, but I do try to get back to you before 24 hours. Grades, I have some of your grades completed. Others I'm working on today. I always try to get those out on Monday, Tuesday, whenever possible, Wednesday at the very latest. And it's very, very odd, extraordinary, I would say, if I ever wait till the Friday. Sometimes it happens on the larger assignments, because we have so many students in the class, and if you have a multiple page paper, it takes a little while to get it back to you. I want to make sure I read those. And I do take time. I look at all your discussions. I read all your papers from beginning to end. Sometimes I will grade other students' paper after I read it, and I might take an assignment and read it, set it to the side. I want to ponder on it just a little bit and make sure that I'm completely understanding what you're saying, and I can give you the benefit of the doubt to really give you some extra tips in feedback and suggestions. And that's the goal. Obviously we have a rubric. Obviously we have grades that we have to follow, rules, etc. But the goal is to teach and to really help you learn the material, as well as APA, which I always bring up. I know by the end of the class you'll get tired of hearing about APA, but it is important. So that's really the goal of the class, is to help you learn. That's why we're in college. We need to pick up new ideas, not just to get this certificate, or we should be, not to just, get this piece of paper that we can go to the chief or HR and say, look, I have this new degree. You need to learn something in the process, and learning should be a lifelong experience. We do that every day we make a run. We do that when we train. It should really be a lifelong experience, and I want to give that to you and try to help you. Not throwing rocks and bricks at you, but to help you and be by your side. So let's talk a little bit about about week 2. A lot of information. We're talking about historical lessons and training this week. We're taking a real good look at some of the information, the things that go into emergency planning. Aside from just learning some of those plans and coordination that we talk about, with comprehensive emergency management and really taking into account NIMS and hazard mitigation. That's a lot of stuff to do, and stuff being a technical term. We'll talk a little bit about social media, how important that is, and I actually have, I'll get to that in a minute. I'm going to show you a book that I want you to consider, and I probably should have got this book out before, but there's a book that a friend of mine wrote, who I've had as a professor, and she teaches in Mississippi, but she wrote a book on, I'll find the book, but she wrote a book on social media and emergency management, Dr. Connie White, and if you have time, look that up. Dr. Connie White, Social Media in Emergency Management. It's a real good book. There's a lot of people in there that I know that works for the governor's office here, etc., that were involved in writing that book. I don't know why she didn't call me, but she didn't. So look at that, and we'll talk about the importance in a moment. So I want you to look at those resources that I sent out in the announcement this week, the Week 2 overview. You should see some links. Links to, of course, NIMS, the Nantucket Hazard Mitigation Plan. I want you to take a look at that. And then, of course, a mitigation plan for Bristol, Rhode Island. So what's a hazard mitigation plan? As I've said in some of the discussions, there really is this focus on nomenclature in our business. And so we always hear disaster, man-made disaster, natural disasters, etc. Well, Craig Fugate, who was the FEMA administrator prior to Brock Long in the last, I think under President Obama, has said often, and we say this in the world of emergency management and disaster planning, is there's really no such thing as a natural disaster, a man-made disaster, etc. They're all hazards. A disaster occurs because of human involvement. It occurs because of those hazards. And so, the other side of that is, as I said in the announcement, we do have hurricanes, tornadoes, floods, earthquakes, that sort. Those are things that happen. Those are hazards. And then what happens as a sort of an effect of that could be called the disaster. And so how a community is impacted often has some human involvement. When we take a look at coastal planning, for example, a hurricane comes in and it hits Florida, or Superstorm Sandy that went up the northeast to east coast there, where y'all guys live. There was some human involvement. We build in these areas where surge from the storm is going to affect. We're going to have wind damage. We're going to have damage to the infrastructure, to the buildings, condominiums, homes. People are going to, don't always evacuate. So that hazard, that disaster, is sort of the ramifications, I should say, from that hazard. And so having a hazard mitigation plan, first to understand some of those hazards that we have and how to manage those hazards, that's important. Sometimes when we look at this assignment, we get a little confused because I've had to say, wait a minute, we're supposed to be looking at all hazards and responding, using all our resources and assets to respond to all hazards. Yep, that's exactly correct. But we need to know what those hazards are. And keep in mind that just because we have a hazard, it doesn't mean there's a difference between probability and impact. So we may have, for example, a low probability hazard but high impact. So, if a tsunami hits in Georgia, the probability of Georgia being, impacted by a tsunami is low. Obviously, it's minuscule. But if it were to occur to the point that Georgia would be affected, then the impact would likely be high. So we need to take a look at those different hazards in our community and try to mitigate those different hazards, and then set up a plan where and procedures where we can respond to all hazards with our equipment. And that's important when we take a look at our comprehensive emergency management plans. All those different pieces that I've shared with you. It's important because, it saves us time, effort, and money when we're able to use all our resources and assets to respond to every hazard. And you do that now if it's law enforcement or a fire call, when the bell goes off, when your pager sounds, however you get your alerts, then, y'all guys respond, guys and gals. You respond to the call, and then you figure out how to handle it. If it's a fire, you may pull a line, you may not, depending on what it is. If it's a hazmat incident, you call hazmat. So we can look at those hazards and then go out and, really call for assistance in those areas where we're not able to handle those hazards with what we have. We can call for mutual aid. So lots of good information, lots of reading. Let's talk a little bit about social media and emergency management. We know about the media; it's important. And one of the books that I like to share information is this book, and it's the Jane's Crisis Communications Handbook. It's pretty. It's small. But it's pretty comprehensive. It's just step-by-step, detailed, do this, do that, don't do this. If you've ever had the PIO class, I'd encourage you to take that if you haven't. If you have, maybe you've got some insight. But information is shared quickly. We have to be, careful with how we share that with social media, Twitter accounts, Facebook, Instagram, etc. We had an incident this week in the small community where I live, which doesn't happen very often. We don't have a lot of assaults or anything. But we had a stabbing where actually had to fly the patient, and before the helicopter landed on the ground, it had already hit social media, and people throughout the community were already asking questions and sharing what they know. And we can use that as a tool. We can use that as a tool when we look at warning, early warning, etc. It should be part of the plan, not just one thing, such as outdoor sirens, etc. But social media can be used when it's, from a reliable source, and if we're the source in how we package that. So I'm interested in looking at hearing your thoughts on the use of social media in emergency management. Okay, that's a lot. It's been about 15 minutes. I just wanted to give you a quick overview. Make sure you take a look at those announcements, read my tips, look at those examples I shared on the discussions, check your grammar. Remember, it really is important to look at those tips. I want you to pay close attention to my feedback as we go forward on your discussions, your written assignments, on the material, and of course writing APA. If you need extra help, we do have a student success center here at Anna Maria College. I'd encourage you to reach out to them. You'll find the information on the Anna Maria website. Work with the library. Those guys are really good. Guys and gals over there are really good about helping students with writing and research. If you haven't checked out our online library, wow, guys, I'm going to tell you, the Anna Maria College online library is one of the best that I've ever seen, especially with a program, a college that's this small. It is impressive, and I spend a lot of time using the databases at Anna Maria College because it's so good. And take a look at that. It's all online. Tutoring's online. The library's online. Use those resources. Doesn't cost you any extra whatsoever. You're not having to pay extra fees. Take a look at them. So have a great week. If you need me, reach out to me. I'm here for you. Otherwise, I'll see you in the discussions, and thanks for stopping by.